You ever see those blue and red lights washing over your perfect little street, turning every white fence and fancy mailbox into a crime scene? Yeah, that was Mapleton Oaks last month, and I was standing there in the middle of it, hands in the air, neighbors gawking from every driveway like they'd tuned in for the nightly drama and finally got front row seats. And right at the center, in her signature red blazer and pearls, stood Emma Johnson, our HOA president, the queen bee herself, clutching this tiny plastic bag of white powder like it was the Holy Grail. "There it is," she screamed. "I told you he was hiding something." The deputy was already fumbling for his cuffs trying to play hero, but see, Emma didn't want justice. She wanted a show, and I knew it. So I just reached in my jacket, real calm, and flipped out my badge, Director, Drug Enforcement Administration. And buddy, let me tell you, you could have heard a pin drop. Emma's face went from smug to ghost white in a heartbeat. Knees just gave out, collapsed right there on the pavement. You know what I mean? You can't script that kind of karma. So before I get into how a routine HOA meeting spiraled into a federal takedown, do me a favor. Drop your city in the comments. Tell me what time it is, and if you've ever crossed paths with a neighbor like Emma, I want to hear those stories too. And if you're into seeing HOA bullies get what's coming, hit subscribe, because this is just the opening act. Now you got to understand, Emma Johnson was up early that day with a plan. She'd been counting the blades of grass in my front yard for weeks, watching when I parked outside the visitor lines, probably even timing which trash bin I wheeled out every Tuesday. That's life in Mapleton Oaks, picture perfect on the surface, but rot just under the lawn. Folks wave at you in the morning, then file complaints as soon as your garage door shuts. The rules aren't rules, they're weapons, and Emma wielded them like she owned the zip code. I'd been there 57 days. That's all it took to learn the HOA wasn't about keeping the place nice. It was about control. That evening, driving back from taking my mom to physical therapy, sunsetting behind those towering oaks felt like a postcard. As I rolled up to the gate, 2 volunteers in orange vests blocked the lane, clipboards ready. And there was Emma, lips pressed, sunglasses, glinting, smile sharp as glass. "Mr. Miller, we've had complaints about a suspicious smell from your car. HOA policy allows inspections." I almost laughed. Safety in Mapleton Oaks. Safety means keeping the riffraff, aka me, out. But I played along. She made me get out of my car. One volunteer looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Do we really need to?" he whispered. Emma cut him off. "Mapleton Oaks takes drug use seriously." Next thing I know, she's gesturing to the kid to search my trunk, and I see her reach into her purse and palm something tiny, clear plastic. She ducks into my passenger seat, comes up like she's won the lottery. "Oh my goodness," she cries. "Look what I found," holding the bag up for everyone to see. Neighbors are already filming with their phones. 5 minutes later, sheriff's cruiser rolls in. Deputy Jackson, Emma's barbecue buddy, steps out and barely glances at me. "Evening, Emma." "What's the issue?" She's grinning, waving the bag. "Caught him red-handed cocaine in his car." Jackson gives me the whole routine mock sympathy. Miranda writes the whole bit. That's when I opened my wallet, flipped my badge, let that gold DEA emblem catch the flashing lights. Robert Miller, Director, Drug Enforcement. Whole scene froze. The volunteer nearly dropped his clipboard. Jackson stopped mid-sentence. Emma looked like she'd seen a ghost. And then, like a bad soap opera, Emma's knees just buckle. She collapses, purse spilling across the asphalt, muttering, No, this can't be." Deputy fumbles. She fainted. I tell him, "Better call an ambulance and keep that evidence sealed. My team's been parked less than a mile away waiting for my signal." Because here's the kicker, I didn't move to Mapleton Oaks for the pool and the HOA newsletters. The feds suspected someone was funneling confiscated narcotics through HOA enforcement fines. This neighborhood was one of 6 under investigation, and Emma Johnson just handed me everything I needed on a silver platter. When the ambulance left with Emma mumbling about misunderstandings, the neighborhood went dead quiet. Even the crickets stopped. I told Jackson, "Keep your hands off that bag till my federal unit arrives. Tampering with DEA evidence is 20 years minimum." He went pale. The crowd melted away. The self-appointed queen of Mapleton Oaks had just watched her crown roll into the gutter. But see, in my line of work, the real danger always starts after the first domino falls. That night, curtains twitched, engines idled in the street. Emma wasn't working alone. She was the face, not the brains. Next morning, lawns were perfect, but the tension under the surface was thicker than the humidity. Somebody taped a note to my mailbox. "We don't want trouble. Leave." Like I brought the trouble. Mapleton Oaks was rotting from the inside and they just didn't want to look. My team's overnight lab report confirmed the cocaine was from a 2019 federal evidence batch. Serial numbers matched. Only someone with access to police evidence lockers could have gotten it, and the HOA's maintenance fines were running through a shell company tied to a deputy prosecutor's law firm. It wasn't just about power, it was big business. Then knock at the door. Emma herself, sunglasses folder in hand, looking like she hadn't tried to frame me 12 hours before. "I came to apologize for the misunderstanding," she said, voice shaky. I laughed. "Is that what we're calling it now?" She tried to play it off. "Rumors, mistakes, all that." I reminded her, "Good people don't frame neighbors, Mrs. Johnson." Her smile vanished. "Be careful, Mr. Miller. You don't know how things work here." "Oh, but I did." She stormed off, heels clicking, and I watched her disappear behind her perfect hedges. Later that day, I met with my agents at a cafe outside the gates. We'd hacked into the HOA's group chat. It was called Clean Streets Project. Sounded wholesome, but read like a criminal playbook. Seed drop successful meant evidence planted. Code 9 meant frame the target. And every message circled back to Deputy Jackson. That evening, driving through the neighborhood, I spotted a black SUV with no plates, windows tinted dark, watching me. By the time I got home, it was gone. My landline rang, a voice distorted by software. "Back off, Director. This isn't your jurisdiction." I laughed. Now I knew they were scared. At the next HOA meeting, Emma tried to act in charge, but the board was fidgety. I slid a photo across the table Emma caught on gatehouse camera planting the bag. She stuttered, "That's not real, but the timestamp and patrol log said otherwise." A board member finally asked her, "Emma, is this true?" She didn't answer. "This meeting is under federal investigation," I announced, and the room went ice cold. A day later, my team caught the HOA treasurer trying to erase records at the clubhouse, renaming files, sending them to an encrypted cloud. We let her panic. The more she tried to hide, the more we collected. Neighbors started talking. One old man, Henry Webb, invited me in. He showed me a pile of unopened HOA fines, paint colors, noise complaints, cracked driveway. 17 grand they say I owe, or they'll take my house. I checked the names, every fine signed by Emma. I asked, "Did they ever seize someone's property?" He nodded. "The Thompsons. Nice young couple got raided after 2 missed payments." I'd seen their names in the files they'd been busted with evidence from the same federal batch. My agent Ortega found the kicker. Every fine over 2 grand was laundered through a maintenance subcontractor account controlled by Emma's shell company, and 30% of all proceeds wired to Deputy Jackson. They even flipped seized houses to a single broker, all closing through the same notary, like a machine churning lives into profits. That night, as my team watched the clubhouse cameras, Emma called an emergency board session. On her spreadsheet, names were color-coded compliant monitor problem. My name in red new target. Use code 9. I listened as Emma snapped, "We make Miller the villain. I'll say he's harassing me, threatening the HOA. People will believe me, they always do." It was almost impressive, her arrogance. I told my team tomorrow we let her sweat. Tomorrow night we take it all. Except Mapleton Oaks wasn't done showing its teeth. At midnight, 2 hooded guys tried to torch my car, paid $2,000 each by Emma, but they weren't pros. My agents nabbed them before they got away. Gasoline, still fresh red paint on my windshield. "Stop digging now." I just smiled. "Oh, I'm just getting started." Next morning we had the money trail. Jackson had wired $50,000 to Emma labeled as consulting. She meanwhile filed a civil suit against me for slander. That's desperation right there. I walked into her office with a folder, photos, bank transfers, everything. I gave her a choice: cooperate or go down as the architect of a criminal empire. Her hands shook. "You don't understand what they'll do if I talk," she whispered. I pressed. Developers, investors, even county officials. We just played our part. Emma was never the queen, just a pawn allowed to wear the crown. That afternoon I confronted Deputy Jackson. He cracked fast. Named names, contractors, prosecutors, even a bank manager. The web was bigger than Mapleton Oaks HOAs all over the South, laundering stolen drug evidence, making millions. At sundown, we raided Emma's house and the HOA office, safe behind a false wall packed with federal evidence bags, proof of years of stolen narcotics. Emma in handcuffs finally looked relieved, like the nightmare was over. But the real story: the next morning, news vans lined the street, neighbors hid behind curtains, and every HOA in the region was sweating bullets. The DOJ traced the operation back to a federal subcontractor, Fairmont Consulting, who'd built the evidence systems themselves, skimming drugs at every stage. And somewhere above Emma, above Jackson, sat Project Whitehall, a conspiracy that reached all the way to Washington. By the end, there were Senate hearings, resignations, and the kind of headlines that make presidents lose sleep. But Mapleton Oaks, it went quiet. Neighbors realized their paradise was just a pretty mask for something rotten. So here's my question. If the very systems meant to keep us safe can be twisted by greed, if your own HOA could become the front for something dark, would you see it? Or would you just mow your lawn, pay your dues, and hope the trouble never finds you? Because in the end, the biggest threat to justice isn't corruption, it's silence. Drop your stories and your thoughts below. Do you trust your HOA? Have you ever seen power abused where you live? Let's talk about it. And hey, if you believe the truth should never be silenced, make sure you subscribe, share this story, and stay loud. Somebody's got to keep the lights on in these perfect little neighborhoods, right?